Grab Life by the Goals is the podcast for passionate badasses to get inspired, activate their potential, and crush their goals. In a nutshell, we do big shit around here. Whether you're looking to disrupt your career, start or grow a business, or simply have a more kick-ass life, you're in the right place. Come to be inspired, find your swagger, dream bigger, and take actual steps to level up your life. All with a side of real talk and raunchy humor. I'm your host, Lauren Widrick. I'm a life and business coach, and I'm right here on the roller coaster with you. Are you ready? Let's do this. What's up, my badasses? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Grab Life by the Goals podcast. And if you're a business owner, you're in for a treat because we've got Karen Weeks with us today. Karen is a transformational career coach and HR leader, and she's here to educate us about how to be a kick-ass leader as an entrepreneur and a business owner. So Karen, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You guys, Karen is a podcaster. If you've not checked out her podcast, it's called Shine at Work. I've been on it once or twice. It is so good, filled with inspirational leaders. She has a deep background in HR, people leadership, and she's a business owner herself. So Karen, I can't think of anybody better than you to teach us how to become great leaders as business owners.
Thank you. No, and that's what's so interesting about my own journey is that I've been working in tech startups for most of my HR career. I've worked with founders to help build their teams. And all of a sudden, when I realized I was one of those people, I had to rethink even my own HR skills and give myself my own advice. And I said, wait a minute, there's something here that we need to be doing for our entrepreneurs to help them be great leaders from day one. So I'm so excited to help your team think about this and really explore those opportunities for themselves.
Yeah, you are truly passionate about this topic.
Yes.
Karen and I have worked together for over a year. I've seen her business grow from the inside, and I'm like, she literally is so passionate about illuminating people's best leadership qualities. Yeah. So how did you become so passionate about this?
Well, it's so interesting because it really has always been part of my HR career. So when I made the shift from theater to HR all those years ago, my focus in HR was always around development. And it was really because I just want people to enjoy what they do, to feel successful, whatever success means to you. And as I grew my HR career, often that went from individual contributors to leaders and being their partner. And then I really found my niche and my happy spot within tech startups and helping build cultures from the beginning. And so then that just has continued to evolve over and over. And so now as I also help people navigate their careers, I brought a lot of those experiences with new managers, with leaders to really help them think about what was right for them in their careers and their journeys so they could also help their teams. And it just kind of all started to come together. And it really was what I've been doing the last 20 years. And now I can just do it both internally at my organization as well with my own company coaching others.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch. So you help people make career transitions.
Yes.
You help new managers transition into that role and become their best selves as leaders, and then executive coaching and workshops as well. In addition to the podcast, like I said, Karen is a Wonder Woman and she has a full-time job as an HR leader at a tech startup. So I don't know how you do it all, but this is my question. So when it comes to leadership, like you, in the past, I held leadership roles in banking and technology. And then out here in the wild world of, entrepreneurship, I've wondered to myself, are the leadership principles the same or is it a different game? So when you are coaching a new manager within an organization or you're coaching a business owner who's hiring for the first time, is the advice the same or is it different?
It's a great question. It is on paper the same, but it feels so different because it's your company. You feel like you have a lot more at stake. You might also be a solopreneur. So this may be like your partner in crime as well versus having a team of 10, 20, whatever size a company may be. And so I think there's a lot more personally involved, even though on paper, the tasks and the roles and the advice is going to be very similar.
That's good to know because I've said this to Karen behind closed doors. I'll put it on blast here on the podcast. I used to be a good boss. Like when I was in corporate, I thought I was a good boss. People told me I was, they wanted to work for me. But out here as a business owner, I don't know if I am. Like I say either my leadership skills are rusty or like you said, there's more at stake. It's personal. I don't have a boss of my own. So even back in corporate, when I was a leader, I wasn't the CEO of that bank. So that meant I had a boss, right? Now I have nobody guiding me. So when I'm hiring or leading my own team members, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, and you're also trying to be a million different things. Being a manager or even a VP or like whatever level you were at a corporate job, you didn't have to do all of the things. You had to do a lot, but you didn't have to do all of it. Now, as a CEO of your own company, you are responsible for everything: sales, marketing, clients, whatever clients are to you, or product, or whatever your service is. Oh, and by the way, now you're managing someone as well. And a lot of it was probably built through your own expertise and it's all in your head. And so you have to figure out how to get that out to set up the person for success. So it's just a lot more complicated, complex, like a spider web or whatever metaphor you want to use. And now you're bringing a person into that spider web versus just having to manage your function or your department.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. That was me. That was me last year, hiring blind. And I hired great people, but I felt like I can see in hindsight, like I did not have Karen's system or leadership teaching me how to do this. So we're going to walk you through that today. So Karen has developed truly like a proprietary system for how entrepreneurs can become amazing leaders and hire the right people and treat them well and get the best results, all that good stuff. But let's get into the horror stories a little bit first. Like, where do entrepreneurs get this wrong?
Yes, there's a couple of different things. So one is, again, especially if you're an entrepreneur with a really small team or this is your first hire, you also don't want to be as isolated and as alone in your company. So you often hire someone who is like going to be your bestie in your company versus the person you need with the skills to actually do the thing. So hiring the person with the skills and the expertise plus someone you'll get along with. Don't get me wrong, that's super important, but it can't be the first thing that you hire for. The other piece is trying to figure out how to set them up for success. So again, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, you're probably doing a lot of the things on your own. Have you taken the time to actually map out, when I hired someone on my team in my coaching business, I actually had to put together my process of this is how I onboard a new coachee so that she could then take that over, because otherwise it was all in my head and I was just kind of doing it haphazardly. So I think putting together strong processes that you can then train them on in order for them to be successful is the other mistake that I see people make, is that they don't create those processes.
Yep. I made both of those mistakes more than once. So the first
You are
one you
not
said
alone.
is like hiring your besties.
Yeah.
I think you're right, because we want to hire people we like. We want to do them a solid. We want to bring them into this thing that we built that we love, but that can cause blurred boundaries.
Yeah.
I believe. So that's probably smart advice. And then the other is, if you're a solopreneur or just have like a VA or one or two people and you're really growing your team, probably most of it's in your head.
Yeah. Well, and it's really interesting because there's someone I would love to work with as my business grows and my career shifts in years to come. But I know that's not now. And if I were to ever bring her on now, it would be the wrong time. And so, but the personal side of me is like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to work with this person one day. But I need to recognize it needs to be one day. And what I needed first was a really strong coordinator who could quite honestly get shit off my plate as I try to balance my main job as well as my side hustle and my clients and the speaking gigs that I have. I needed someone to organize me and like keep me straight. And that's what I needed as my first hire, personally, anyway.
And see, that's why entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their team should meet with Karen and get some of her wisdom, because how do you know who to hire first? What's the most important role? We all want an assistant and a marketing person and a podcast producer and an assistant coach. Like, we all want those things. But where do you start? And so that's why it really depends on your business, where you're at, your goals, your pacing, all of it.
Yeah. And I think it also goes down to, what does success look like for this person that you're hiring as well? What do they want out of the gig? Because sometimes people will be looking for a full-time job and that you don't have the work for that yet. Or maybe they're just want to get their feet wet. And so they just want to learn some skills and they can grow with you. Maybe they just want to do 5 to 10 hours a week and that's all they want to ever do. So it's also important as you're interviewing folks to understand what's going to be important to them and where this role may or may not be able to grow, and do those two things line up? Because you also don't want to set false expectations, even with the best intentions, that, oh yeah, I'm going to bring you on full time and you can do all these things, but that may not be where your business needs that person.
Oh, perfectly said. How do you feel about the phrase hire before you're ready? This is one that gets thrown around a lot in entrepreneur land.
Yes. And honestly, it gets brought up a lot in tech startup world. Well, any startup
Mhm.
world, because you want to make sure you're not hiring too late because then your team feels the bandwidth constraints. But you also can't hire too soon either because you don't have the funds to do that yet, or you don't have the work yet. So it's a constant balance for everybody. And I think the biggest thing is looking at your roadmap. You want to get probably a month or two ahead, if you can financially afford it. And that's why there's great people I know that you and I know that can help people think through like the financial side of this as well. But really sort of thinking through, if I need someone by May, and this is why May is that timeline for me, I probably should start looking for someone in like March or April so that I can find them, hire them, onboard them so they can be having the impact ready that I need them to have in May.
So that's a good point. Hire before you're ready, with knowing that you need that runway of finding them, training them.
Yes.
We used to say this back in corporate too, like hiring somebody, they won't be effective in the role day one.
Yes.
Depending on the role, it could take months for them to actually really, like what we say, hit the ground running. It takes a long time to learn the processes and the systems and the clients and the marketing vibe and all the things that they're here to do.
Yes, absolutely. And again, it's even harder sometimes to do that depending on the maturity of your business to feel confident to do that. So you really want to sort of map out, okay, if I hire someone, here's the financial impact. Here's what they're going to be able to do for me. So maybe that allows me to sell more or take on more clients, or able to get more products out the door. So that's how I can feel comfortable doing it. So you really want to sort of map it out both work-wise and financially, and then figure out, okay, so then what do I actually have to hire that person? So to your point, you want to get ahead of it, but I also understand as an entrepreneur, that's also scary because you don't want to commit to something until you know you have the finances set up.
Yeah, it does mean going on maybe a tiny bit of a financial limb, but that also makes the investment very solid, right? Like when you invest in
Mhm.
a resource, getting ROI on that resource it becomes a priority.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm so excited. I've had a sneak peek of Karen's process for basically planning. She's touched on a little bit, but planning and strategizing for the hire, finding the right person, onboarding them and setting them up for success, and then being a truly kick-ass leader in the process. So Karen, I would love for you to walk us through your philosophy on how entrepreneurs like you and me can be amazing leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. And so first, it's almost like how you started this conversation. Let's first start with the why and who you are going to be as a leader.
Mhm.
It was really interesting. I was talking to someone else that was part of what sparked all of this. I think there's something here piece to entrepreneurs as leaders is they were a manager in a company. They managed like 20 people. Now they've got a team of 3, and they have to figure out how they're going to be a leader in their own organization. So what kind of leader do you want to be? What kind of culture do you want to create within your organization? I know it may only be for 2 people, but these are still things you want to figure out now. So that's sort of the why behind both you as a leader and who you want to bring onto your team. Then there's figuring out what we were just talking about. Who do you actually need to bring on? What are they going to be doing? How is that going to leverage you? So how does it fit within your business goals and your mission for your company this year and the next couple of years? Then you actually need to
Mhm.
figure out who that person is. So what skills are they going to have? What kind of experiences? Are they totally remote? Do you need them to be in person? Like, are you someone who goes to people's houses to do home organization? You probably need people in your local area. So figuring all of those things out, then figuring out how you're going to determine if that person is right. So not just hire your bestie, but do they actually have the qualifications, and how are you going to assess that? Then how are you going to set them up for success for them to come on board? All the pieces of onboarding that you may have done in a corporate world, let's bring that into your own organization, both getting stuff out of your head, training them, introducing them to clients, literally setting up email. So I hired someone and I realized I had no idea how to create an email for them because I
Yeah.
had never had to do that
Been
before. I
there.
didn't know. So even some of those basics, like let's really call that out. And then let's set them up for success. So how do we think about performance management? How do you set some goals for them? How are you going to measure success for them? And then how are you going to hopefully scale this and grow this so you have more team members and you can bring them on board in the future? And if for some reason it doesn't work out, let's make sure you're ready to handle that as well.
Hmm. Oh, are you guys hearing how much there is to consider to do this properly? So where I've gone wrong in the past and been like, I need an assistant, and like post a job, like make a job description in 10 minutes and post it on a Facebook group and hire somebody. Right. And the reason it's been a little rocky is like, I didn't do all of those steps that Karen is outlining is like, what's the long-term vision for this role? What's the next hire? Right. Like, what's the ROI on this role? What are their processes? How will I onboard them? How will we have weekly cadences? Are we going to have one-on-ones? Like, how are the success going to be measured? It's all the stuff we did back in corporate is maybe even more important here, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I always say, look, as you get to a certain point in your career, your business, or the company that you started, you hire a CPA, you hire a coach, maybe around process improvement, or you hire like a social media person. Why wouldn't you take the same amount of time to figure out hiring for your team? So whether that's, literally working with someone like myself or just carving out the time to do it, the investment in getting it right literally can make or break your business.
It can. It can. I mean, I've seen statistics around this in corporate. I know it applies to entrepreneurship, but the cost of making a hire that doesn't work out
Yeah.
is not just that higher salary, but it's actually lost productivity.
Yeah.
Like your other team members are impacted, your time is diverted, you're not selling as much. Like it's like a really compounding cost to get the hire wrong. So it's worth it to work with Karen to get it right.
Well,
Plus you'll
and
enjoy
this
it
is,
more.
and if it's your own business, like imagine the confidence hit or the emotional hit of also not getting it right. And now you have to rebuild all that in order to do it again. And you don't want to bring that history and baggage to your next hire because we'll do it right the next time. So learn from it and let's do it better next time.
Absolutely. Okay, so we started with who are you as a leader? What are your company goals and strategy? And that will determine which hire comes next.
Mhm.
Can we talk a little bit about the hardcore nuts and bolts, like compensation, the job description, recruiting, interviewing? Like, how do you get all that stuff right? Like, where do you find these people?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on who you're looking for.
Hmm.
There are a lot of great platforms out there, whether that is going to like a ZipRecruiter or Indeed, whether that is combing through LinkedIn or other boards that you may be a part of, like networking. So, quite honestly, I found my coordinator by sharing it out on Instagram, and someone you knew saw my post and knew their friend was looking for something and contacted me. So, I mean,
I love it.
you never know where these people are going to come from. So, also just putting it out there that you're looking for someone. And I think figuring out some data around, what is market for that role from a compensation standpoint. And again,
Hmm.
there's lots of free tools out there, even like Glassdoor will post stuff or Indeed, or if that feels too big, ask your buddies, right? So if you are a finance advisor, you probably know other financial advisors. What are they paying their team, just to give you a sense? And most people are willing to share that, or at least give you a range so that you know sort of roughly where you are. And that goes into, can you afford it? And if that range was higher than you expected, maybe they need to be part-time or not do as many hours, or you need to get to a different place or look for someone more junior. So that's a way to think about compensation, is do a little research and then figure out, okay, does that fit my budget? And if not, what levers do I need to pull in order for it to fit my budget?
Hmm. And then you and I have even talked offline about like your willingness to negotiate. So if you say the
Yes.
role is, I don't know, 40 grand a year or $50 an hour, whatever you come up with, are you as the hiring manager willing to negotiate with the candidate or not? Like that's good to know ahead of time so you're not in the middle of it like, oh shit, I don't know. I like this person. Can I afford to pay them more?
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah. Well, and also helping understand what's important to them. And so if you're offering 50 an hour and they're looking for 55, maybe you can't get to 55, but maybe you can offer that they can contribute to a 401k. So if you use some sort of payroll platform where that's part of your package, maybe that helps them make up that difference. Or if you're able to offer a little paid time off. So the other pieces, and I'm not a lawyer, I have lots of HR experience, but I'm not an actual lawyer, or not even close to any sort of lawyer. But there are some state requirements that you need to abide by. Like, so some states require literally any company with more than one person give some sick time. So maybe you're in one of those states. So there's also other things that you should be doing and can be doing for people, even if the exact compensation isn't quite there. So also understanding what the total package is that you can offer someone to.
Yeah. And getting all this stuff worked out before you post the job description is probably smart. Again, a misstep that I've made is okay, like, are you willing to negotiate? What goes in the job description? What are their duties? What are the processes? How often will they get paid? How will you
Yes.
pay them? right? Like having an employment agreement, a contract, if they're a 1099, or I guess a W-2 as well. So like all of this stuff, right? You guys, like when you're flying by the seat of your pants, you miss so many little things that are actually so important.
Yes. And I have created sort of a basic checklist that goes through all this that,
Mhm.
happy to share with this podcast. And that sort of goes into the meat of the program that I'm starting this summer, as well as like webinars that we're going to be able to do around it to really help people recognize it's not meant to overwhelm you. It's meant to say, please do all of these things because that's going to set you as a leader up for success.
Yeah. And like I said, getting all the legal, technical documents down, I mean, that's just, part of the process. That's got to be done. It's making sure that you're setting yourself up for success as a leader too, because I've been in that situation where I hired people and my shit wasn't together, but I found myself getting frustrated with them because they weren't reading my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know this is my fault, but they didn't do the thing I hoped they would read my mind to do. And like, it can really drag down your business to not like just I was gonna say dot your T's, cross your I's. That's backwards, but to get your shit tight
Yeah.
before the new employee gets here. Okay. So we've talked about culture, goal setting, compensation, job description, recruiting even, but what about interviewing? Like when you go to interview somebody for your own company, is that different than back in corporate or is it roughly the same?
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's going to be some pieces that are going to be different because you want to make sure they are able to work with you because it's just going to be the two of you or a very, very
Mhm.
small team at this point. But it's also around, are they able to deal with ambiguity? I would imagine your business is evolving as an entrepreneur. So are they able to sort of ride that roller coaster with you? Are they going to be able to pick up new tasks if they need to? Or if you switch platforms, a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we go with one sort of freebie choice first, and then we upgrade when we grow. Are they going to be able to grow with you and learn new tasks and new systems? So really sort of digging into the interview questions that will support, are they able to do the job today? And if they need to grow with you, what will they be able to do more of in the future? And do they want to? And then I think best understanding how their style is similar to your style. So a lot of times I'll talk about, how do you stay organized? How do you manage your time? What are some things that I need to know that they're doing it? So if you have too much on your plate, how do you prioritize or how do you ask for help? Things that I know will come up, I need to better understand how they will handle that. And one thing that is very similar to the corporate world, although I know some people roll their eyes at it, which is totally fine, I get it, is the behavioral question. So it's one thing to ask, how would you handle this versus tell me a time when you did have to handle it. Everybody always wants to do the right thing, but when you're asking them about how they actually did something, it will give you a lot more insight into how they actually work.
That's so good. And you're right. Like back in corporate, I used to roll my eyes at those, but it was
Yeah.
very telling to say, tell me about a time that you had to deliver unpopular feedback. Like
Yeah.
it's great. And, I've coached companies where they're hiring like interior designers, for instance, and they've wanted that person or social media managers, and they've wanted those people to submit work product. So
Mhm.
how do you feel about that as part of the interview process? Like if you're going to be doing social media for me, mock up 3 quick social media posts so I can get a feel for your vibe. Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's totally fine to ask. Either ask for a portfolio of stuff they've done already, or if they don't
Mm,
have that available or can't share it for whatever reason, ask them to do something for you. I think the one thing I will caveat is sometimes people feel like that's free work. So have it be a
yeah.
light lift. Like don't ask them to do a whole project or have them do something that's tangential to what you do. So, if you were doing this for, I don't know, if you were going to redo the home of some famous person whose name I can't think of right now, what would you suggest or something like that? So it doesn't feel like they're giving you free work, but it's still work that demonstrates their ability to do the job you need them to do.
Okay, that is great. That is a great distinction. I know I'm getting kind of into the nitty gritty
Yeah.
details here, but I've wondered before, like if I were to hire an associate coach, should I have them do a sample coaching call, for
Yeah.
instance? And what I would do based on your feedback, see, this is why we all need Karen, is make it like a 10-minute, like mock,
Yes.
not do an hour long coaching call with one of my clients. Like that would be taking advantage of their time.
Yeah. And again, that, you want them to feel invested in the process as well. So if they say no to anything, then they're not the right person for you. Like they should be willing to give you something. But I also totally respect, either their time, their own work. So you have to sort of find the right balance, and you just need to get what you need. Can you get enough out of 15 minutes? Maybe it's half an hour, but do you really need a full hour? I don't know if you'd need that much.
That's fair. Okay, I'm gonna have you put on your HR hat and give us some of
Yes.
that hardcore HR advice, because when it comes to interviewing and your candidate pool and the types of questions you should avoid in the interview, like we still want to do this right, even though it's our own company and there's no HR department looking over our shoulder. What are some things to make sure that we're doing this the right and legit way?
Yeah, it's so funny because throughout my whole HR career, I said, most of the time I am your advisor. I'm here to help you, but you're an adult. You make your own decision. I will only throw down the red flag when like there's literally risk and we're about to get sued. So some of
Yes.
my red flags are, first of all, identifying if they're going to be an employee or a contractor. So you want to go through the list and think about how much scope of responsibility they have, how much decision-making ability do they have? Can they work for other companies? Do they have to work certain times for you? So first, you just need to even decide if they're going to be an employee or a contractor. Then when
Mhm.
you actually get to the interview process, and by the way, that's important because some people want to be one or the other. So they need to know that when they apply for the job, and it's not their choice. It's a legal decision. So you need to be able to post that ahead of time. Then when you actually get to the interview process, you only want to ask questions that are related to the job or working for, with and for you. So
Mhm.
asking age or anything about their race or sexual orientation or anything personal like that does not come into play. If you want someone who's experienced, you can say, I need someone who's got 10 years of experience, and here's why. It doesn't matter how they got those 10 years. It doesn't matter when they graduated
Yep.
college, so really focus on the job specifics when asking some of those questions. And I know it's harder in today's world because we're told we're supposed to present ourselves as whole humans and put humans first, and this is your own company and you want to make sure you can trust and get along with this person, but you don't want to get into areas that technically have nothing to do with the job, like age or race or any of those pieces. What you can ask is, how do you create trust, and how do you, with previous managers, what previous managers did you
Mm.
get along with? What were those characteristics of those previous managers that you worked really well with? Those give you the information that you need versus getting into too personal of an area.
Right. Like you said, age, race, sexual orientation. I think pregnancy status is a big one. Like
Yes.
that's always been tricky in corporate and entrepreneurship. Like this person's expecting, like, does that impact, their ability to do the job or their time off and all of that? Like, yeah, we want to actually treat this like a real proper interview. Just because it's our own company, we don't have to be like, hey, you seem cool. Can you work nights? Like, I'll pay you on Venmo. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Well, and actually, I'm glad you brought up the parent piece, because some people want people who only want to work part-time, and they think working parents will be more dedicated to just wanting to work part-time. Or the flip side, they worry that working parents won't be able to give them the hours that they need or won't be as available. It is not about the working parent piece. It's about, can they commit to the times that you need, and do
The
they
working hours.
understand exactly the scope of the
Yeah.
role, all of that.
So making assumption about somebody's dedication or
Yes.
availability based on the fact that they're a parent or not a parent would be inappropriate in the interview,
Yes, absolutely. Please
for
do not do
example.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is so good. This is how you can level up and do this the right way, you guys. Karen is your woman. Okay, so let's say you've done all the things we've described, right? You've got your goals down, you know who you're hiring, you've got the compensation structure, the job description, the employment agreement in place, you've recruited and networked, you found the candidates, you've interviewed them, and now you're ready to make the offer and onboard them. So how do we set this person up for success in their first, we like to say 30, 60, 90, like in their first 30, 60, 90 days?
Well, and that's where corporate life comes over, right? Like you should do the same
Yes.
thing. You had to do that for your teams back in corporate world, so do it here too. So first, I always encourage day one, and maybe even day two, is like, just get everything set. Emails, system setups, like all of the things, just literally get them set up for everything. Week one is building your relationship. So meeting with them every day, deciding how you're then going to meet with them moving forward. Is it once a week? Is it a daily stand up? How are you going to work with this person? That should be a lot of week one, is like setting up those boundaries, setting up those work practices, those communication expectations, and setting them up on all of the things they need to know, so that you can then start training them on different systems, introducing them to clients, giving them access to, like, if they're going to do your social media, giving them access to Instagram and Canva and whatever things are important, so that the first day is literally like, this is what you need to do your job. Week one is, this is how we're going to work together and what's expected of each other. Month one can then be, great, now let's get you trained and let's start having you take over some simple things, so that by month two, they are actually starting to own some of the work and starting to demonstrate some of the things that you need. And I would map all of that out with expectations, goals, what success looks like. I need you to know this by this point, because by this point, I'm going to start giving you these things. And then have those daily, weekly check-ins, both on what's going on, what do they need from you, but also how are you doing against these goals? And then finally, always ask for feedback back. What can I be doing differently as your manager? What do you need from me? What blockers can I help you remove? How are you feeling bandwidth wise? Like, asking some of those questions, and always having them be very open-ended questions, not yes, no questions. Like, get the information out of them to make sure that you are being the best you can be.
And that's such a great step that's missed in leadership all over the place. I know I've missed that step myself, to say, honestly, like, how can I be a better leader to you and support you in reaching our goals here together? So you just gave a really beautiful structure. Day 1 or 2 is give them what they need to log in and get up and running. Yep. Week 1, you said, is building the relationship, which I think is beautiful. And then month 1 is training so that they can get up to speed in their role.
Yes.
That's slow and fast. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's slow to be like, slow down. Don't expect them to crank shit out on their 5th day here. But on the other hand, if you do this right, it's only 30 days and they're really, really set up right.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of time to train someone. So I know the goal of hiring someone is to get stuff off your plate, which will happen, I promise. But if you make that upfront investment, it will go so much better and you can actually get the stuff off your plate. If you're trying to do everything at once, and I know as a company, sometimes we're building the engine and flying the plane at the same time. If you do that too much with your person, they aren't going to be able to pick up the things they need to pick and actually learn the things. And, this is your business, right? Like, you need to find the right balance. Is it 3 weeks? Is it 4 weeks? Whatever's right for you. But that goes back to your question around the timing of the hiring. Is, if you're hiring an event coordinator and you've got huge events happening this summer, you probably do want to hire them a little bit further out so you can train them on everything so they can pick up those events. But if it's, an EA, which is super important, and you want someone to support you, you can take the time to train them right. Because if you're constantly going back and forth or cleaning things up because they missed something because they weren't trained right, they're not helping, they're only hurting.
Exactly. And nobody's going to be happy in the relationship. So this 1 month, again, which is short in the long, in the long run, is totally worth it to get things set up properly for all parties.
Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely love it. Okay. What if somebody gets into the role and it becomes apparent, I don't know, within that first month or within the first few months, that it's not going to work out? So even if you've done everything, right, you've set them up properly, the processes, the systems, the training, the relationship, and you're still like, they just aren't getting it.
Yeah.
What's your first course of action? And then let's go to the worst case scenario. What happens if you need to let them go? How would you handle both of those?
And by the way, that totally happens. I do this for a living and I have made bad hires. So like, it happens. So I think first is, one of the reasons why it's really helpful for you as a manager to be asking, what can I be doing differently? What do you need from me? Is that it creates that feedback culture. I want feedback and I respect you enough to give you feedback. And so it's a reciprocal relationship. So I think first of all, setting that tone from the beginning is, I'm going to give you feedback because that's the only way all of us will be successful. I want you to give me feedback. First of all, don't forget good feedback. So I know we're going to talk about like if it doesn't work, but please make sure you're celebrating them, recognizing them, like all of the good things too. Because it's easy when we're really busy to go like, great, they just got the shit done, versus, oh, thank you so much for doing that. Like that was really helpful. But then if it doesn't work out, identifying it soon, what is not working. And if you can't identify it, ask them. So that's why clear expectations is so helpful, because you're able to say, hey, it's week 3, and we had agreed that you are going to be taking over client contracts by this point. I haven't seen that happening, or I saw some errors in the contracts that went out, or you're still asking a lot of questions for some of the basic, like fill in the blank stuff. Help me understand what's missing. And the reason why saying things like, it feels like this is still confusing for you, or help me understand why that contract didn't have the right information, or why you had to ask those follow-up questions, because that helps you identify what's going on. Maybe honestly, it was just a gap in training. Maybe we all went too fast. Maybe it's not standardized enough. So there could be a lot of reasons why, or it could be they're just not picking it up fast enough, and you need to think about something different. But that way you're able to identify why, and then you can figure out, can I fix this? How can I fix this? And if not, you've got some clear examples of, it didn't work. This is why it didn't work. We tried to fix it. That didn't work. So this may not be the right fit.
I see. Do you need to do a performance review? So like out here in these streets as an entrepreneur, let's say I had an employee not working out. Should I put them on a performance plan? Because my fear is, my husband and I have talked about this, putting an employee on a performance plan could cause, I don't know, resentment. They're upset. They fuck with your business. Like, is there any risk of that? Or is it like, no, the proper thing to do is like treat them like an adult, put them on a performance plan, give them 30 days to get better.
So
what do you think about that?
Yeah, my belief throughout my whole HR career is that a performance plan should truly be a plan to help them get better.
Okay.
If you don't think they can get better, or it's only been 3 weeks or something like that, you have to decide, does that even make sense? It should not be a check the box so I can then fire you. So I think that's the key. So I think having a really open conversation saying, hey, those client contracts you're sending out, I'm seeing a lot of mistakes. I expect client contracts to have 0 mistakes, or at this point, you should only be asking like a couple of questions about the nuanced pieces of a contract. So therefore, that's what's going to happen over the next week. We've got 3 more contracts coming up in the next week. I expect these changes to be made. And you can put that in an email as a follow-up, so it's very clear what's expected, because sometimes when you verbally share feedback, it can either get jumbled, or someone gets emotional, they don't hear it or hear all the details. So always follow up in writing. This is what we talked about. This is the gaps I'm seeing. This is where I expect it to be different over the next week, over the next 2 weeks, whatever time frame you have where they can actually show a difference in performance. And then if that doesn't happen, then you can decide, is it better to part ways, because this should be pretty straightforward. And so I worry that you're not able to pick this up. Or if they've been with you for a while and you're seeing a change in their behavior, or this is a new thing that they're struggling to pick up, then maybe a performance plan might make more sense, because it's giving them a chance to improve.
I hear what you're saying. So like, don't just do it as a check the box. If you know it's not working out, don't give them false hope with a performance plan that things are going to get better. Just part ways. Yeah. But a performance plan can actually be like a path to clearing up a gap between you and your employee. So that's beautiful. And as Karen mentioned earlier, neither of us are attorneys, so don't take this as legal advice, but your employment contract should have language around termination.
Yes. Yeah. And they could be, depending on your state, they could be an employee as at will, which technically means you don't have to do this. Although I think it's often like you should give feedback and give them a chance to improve. And that's why if they're a contractor, do you have a clause about like either party can give notice at a certain time? So that's why the other contractor versus employee piece is also really important.
You guys hear how much there is to consider when it comes to hiring and managing employees? It's a legit practice. And by handling it the way Karen is describing, it means you're treating yourself as an actual CEO and your business as a proper business entity, not just like, this thing I'm running out of my house or my side hustle, or I'm a coach, solopreneur. Like, no, you're a CEO of a proper company. And this is how CEOs of companies run their shit, like professionals. So that's why I think this work is so important, Karen.
Yeah, it's also the best thing to do as humans too, right? Like if you've brought someone onto your team, you want them to be set up for success. Yes. You want to acknowledge if it's not working, or you want to celebrate when it is. And so you also just want to, do the best you can for the person in front of you too.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing it back to the human side. I'm like, you need contracts as a CEO so you don't get sued. And Karen's like, yeah, but also be a good leader and a good person. Which brings me to one of my final questions for you. So when I was back in coach training years ago, they taught us a module called leader SelfCare. And the things we need to do to take care of ourselves so that we can shine bright for our teams. So do you have any advice, once everything is set up properly, process, documents, the team's running on all cylinders, what about you as the leader? What can these people do to really shine their brightest?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think first of all, take a moment to celebrate that you hired someone on your team. That means your business is growing. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. Lots of people don't get to that space. So just take a moment to recognize that. I think then also just continuing to build the relationship with the person on your team, because that's going to make you happier too. Most people, even my most introverted friends, don't want to be hiding under rocks. So you now have a team that you can work with on these things. So think about how they can also help you both mentally and just in your practice, and to be excited and motivated for the work that you do. A lot of times my coordinator and I will talk about just what's going on in the business and a new program I'm working on. I don't need her to do anything about it yet. I'm just excited to share it with her and know that she's on this journey with me. And I really see her as someone who's a part of the future too. And then finally, remember you hired someone to help you. So either that was to take things off your plate, whether that was to delegate, whether that was to allow your business to grow so that you didn't have to do it all, whatever the reason was that you hired someone, then allow yourself to have space for the other things that you wanted, either time for yourself, time for your family, self-care, go for a walk, or other areas of their business that wasn't getting attention because you were trying to do it all. So also make sure that you then take advantage of that space and do the things you wanted to do, including time for you as a person, not just more shit in your company.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. The way we show up as leaders is vibrational, in my opinion. If we show up stressed and burned out and bitching at everybody on our team because we didn't sleep well or whatever, that impacts the whole company, out to the clients, out to the brand. So I think what you said is important. Let go.
Yeah.
We as solopreneurs, it's hard to let go. We hired somebody to do our social media, but then we want to nitpick every post. It's no, that's 80%. It's 80% good enough. Put it out and then go take a walk.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing too, is as you start to delegate more, recognizing it's going to sound a little different because it's not literally you, or it may look a little different because you're not doing it. And that's okay. 90% of the stuff they're doing is not going to hurt anything if they do it a little differently. So let them do it a little differently. It's okay.
I agree. We've both been there. Karen is amazing to work with. So as we've mentioned earlier, she is a career transformation coach. So if you are getting a new job or a new manager or an executive looking to perform better, she can help you on that side of the house. And if you're an entrepreneur like Karen, like me, like so many of our squad mates who are hiring our own teams for the first time, she has an exciting program coming up later this spring. And do you want to give us a little sneak preview? It's not been formally announced yet, so we're getting a little, behind the curtains peek, but tell us about how you will be working with and supporting entrepreneurs as they grow their teams.
Yeah. So we will be working together as a group, because I have learned from you, having a squad is so important. So we'll bring some solopreneurs together over the summer, meet weekly to go through everything that we just talked about, and give us a chance to have the tools and resources for what you need, the support, the confidence, and the peer networking to also share best practices. And we'll do that over the summer together as a group so that you can go from solopreneur to people manager within 90 days and really feel confident in the people that you're hiring to set your business up for success.
And I love this because if you're about to make your first or second or third hire, come into this program. But this program will serve you forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You'll be making your first hire, but you'll be referring back to Karen's playbook next year when you're making your 8th hire, right? And these are skills that you need to grow your business. People, this is not a cliche. You hear it all the time, but your greatest asset are your people, and they will make or break your business. So the way you select and onboard and treat and lead them is literally all that matters when it comes to growing your company.
Yeah. And, I'm sure people are hearing about the great resignation and the war for talent and all of the things that I talk about in my head of HR role. Even though you may not be feeling it every single day as a team of two, it's all still happening around you. So if you can do it right now, or if you haven't done it right in the past, do it right moving forward, that will truly set your business up for success. I've seen it in the corporate space. I see it with my entrepreneur friends. It really does make the difference.
solopreneur to people manager in 90 days. So Karen will be announcing this program later this spring to begin in the summer 2022, correct?
Yes.
How else can people find you, connect with you, work with you, all the things?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is karendweeks.com. It's going through a little refresh right now, but all the important stuff is there. On Instagram, it's KDW_coaching_careers. And then I'm on LinkedIn, just Karen D Weeks on LinkedIn. And I would love to chat with all of you and see how I can help.
Yes, connect with Karen, whether you're a career transitioner or an entrepreneur like us. She is your girl. And just like I said at the beginning, like a ray of sunshine. Her motto is all about shining brighter at work and in life. And we share passion about that because it's all about your life and your experience. Yes. So Karen, thank you for being here. It's been a treat and a pleasure. And I just adore you.
Thank you so much for having me. I adore you as well.
Yes. And for everybody listening, don't forget to grab life by the goals, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Grab Life by the Goals podcast. If you loved this episode, I would be thrilled if you subscribed wherever you listen to your podcast so that you can get notified when an episode drops and we can rendezvous like this every single week. If you're feeling frisky, maybe slap a 5-star review on this bitch and maybe even some comments about what inspired you from this podcast episode. This is simply so more people can find us and join our squad of badassery. I love me some Instagram, so come find me. My handle is @Lauren Widrick, and if you screenshot and share this episode with your peeps, I'll come shower you with all the virtual hugs and kisses. Until next time, grab life by the goals, my friend.